We are back. We are back, folks. I just finished eating. I really, really cut it close here. Opening up the phone line, 646-257-3920.
What are you eating? Can we get a description? Hummus.
Protein bites.
Ask the moms.
Chocolate peanut butter protein bites.
Mmm.
I also, yeah.
Peanut butter is clutch when it comes to protein.
It is, and the chocolate makes
yeah.
it good. It's good when I just need a little bit of energy,
A
but
Snickers is basically a healthy breakfast.
I mean...
That's what I say. That's what I've been telling my doctor. Won't listen to me. That's my breakfast, Snickers and a Monster. Do you think there's something wrong with that? Yeah.
I was doing that for the first couple years of me coming into work on this program.
Still somehow better than like a Fruity Pebbles breakfast or one of those other cereals that I used to love as a kid.
Oh,
Paul Ryan says we have the fun have visuals tomorrow, please. Bradley couldn't find it. Ultraviolet, can you write in and just say
or can somehow get in touch with me in the YouTube chat? I'll give you my email. It's just easier to email me directly. I just don't necessarily want to say it on air, but
oh, okay. I mean, or just say what the subject is, and you don't have to give out your personal email.
Well, I just couldn't find. I couldn't find a recent email from her and from them.
Ultraviolet says that she resent the
okay,
email.
I'll look again.
I don't want to deal with this anymore. Okay, let's take a call. Calling from a 412 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 412.
Hi, is this me?
This is you.
Okay. Well, first off, let me defend asking, is this me, despite the songs. Last time I tried calling in, it was a 412, and I started talking immediately, and it was some other jackass. But
Lessons
anyway.
learned.
So I've been trying to call in for a little while, and then it got too old, and I gave up. But with the recent polls that showed that Kamala, Gaza was a big deal, right? A lot of people did sit out because of Gaza. But back in about a year ago now, in February, I was in a Democratic poll, like a opinion survey thing from Nelson. So it seemed like it was a pretty official thing. Okay. And during that time, Gaza was not brought up once. Not a single time.
Yeah.
And I finally raised my hand. They said, are there any other issues anybody wants to talk about? And I said, well, are we not going to talk about Palestine? Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
No, you're doing well.
But, thank you. But I said, are we really not going to talk about Palestine today? And the guy looked at me like I had, 3 heads or something. And he said, well, okay, does anybody else think that Palestine is an important issue in this election? Every single person in the room, I think there's 12 of us, everyone raised their hand. And again, the guy just looked incredibly shocked.
Dude, I had a similar experience with somebody who's a centrist, basically, who I've known for years, saying to me, how'd you get so invested in this? What was the thing that got, that was the question they tried to ask me, because obviously I post about it all the time and they see. And I just want to be like, what got me so invested in this? My morals that stand against genocide. There's a lot of ignorance out there, but in terms of the Democrats and the groups that you're talking about that are trying to mobilize on behalf of the party,
they're big babies.
They're both ignorant, and also they're basically, I would say, they're manufacturing consent, and they're complicit in it.
Well, this was the weird part, was they, the whole group, it was all like white guys in their 30s. And, it's February, so I joked to the group, oh, the demographic must be that we're all wearing coats today. But they were clearly trying to reach white guys in their, late 20s, early to mid 30s. And every single person raised their hand. And a couple of them were disgustingly honest about it. One guy said, well, the pollster said, so you all think this is an important issue? And one guy literally said, I mean, it doesn't affect me. Like, I don't care about it, but I know that it is important, like, in the world. So, I mean, they had the cream of the crops kind of, libs.
Yeah. I think that
would rather ignore it.
I think that the consensus about foreign policy not affecting elections is an outdated premise based on and I will say that I was more sympathetic to it prior to the election and entertained it, but I'm now, based on the data, changed my mind, obviously, or basically made up my mind. I think specifically when you have a cost of living crisis and people can't afford to make rent, they can't afford groceries, and then they see on their phones genocide happening, yeah, that has an effect on depressing turnout. It may not flip somebody to Trump, but it definitely has an effect on depressing turnout. And even the Iraq War, people still underestimate how much that buoyed Barack Obama to the presidency with along landslide margins in 2008. It still is presented as purely really the economic collapse, which is a part of it. But it was also how he got out of that primary was his opposition to the Iraq War compared to Hillary Clinton, who had all of the advantages going into that race. So I think it's interesting to hear that and how that was ignored. But appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
I just want to say, the history of this is fairly clear. Again, Hubert Humphrey had a pretty similar situation with the Vietnam War. He said, unlike LBJ, I'm not just going to continue bombing North Vietnam. We're going to stop that. And he made up 20 points in the polls and almost closed on Richard Nixon in that election. This election was close. If Harris had done that, like we had been saying she should have done it, she could have won this election. I don't know if it was determinative. I think the Democrats, frankly, insensitivity to cost of living crisis was maybe the longer term sort of, gangrene that doomed them. But it plays a big role people are primed to see billions of dollars in arms shipments going out the door to other countries, and also their inability to pay their rent and be like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah. I think that's right. It's an easy narrative to sell because it also is true. I mean, there are musical lyrics about this, about how we have all the money. I mean, I'm going to butcher a Tupac lyric, but all the money for wars and not the money to feed the poor. So this is not something new, but it is new that it is live streamed and it's on and accessible to everybody. And there's not this grand thing like in the Gulf War on when you turn on every night to watch CNN and how patriotic it is that we're bombing the Middle East. You don't have those filtration systems anymore. So it's part of the complete degradation of our traditional media outlets and cable news in favor of the internet. And also, a complete lack of understanding about what well, I'm taking that back because they basically now admitted that what was behind the TikTok ban was their understanding that people were seeing what they were doing. So, but you can't put that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even in the 90s, there was the ban on showing the coffins returning home from troops and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do some clips, shall we?
Yeah.
Can we do Jerry's?
Wait. Okay. Oh, we didn't get to this yesterday. Is this what you were referring? Why don't you tee it up for me as I open up my sound sheet?
Well, so this is
Newman. It's Newman comes after him. Is that what happened?
Newman is an anti-Zionist.
That's why they had such conflict in that apartment.
He's pro-Palestine?
He's pro-Palestine.
Jerry, he's pro-Palestine.
He's pro-Palestine. I don't want him delivering my mail anymore.
So, and we weren't able to find the broader section of this, I guess. But this is
it wasn't on his screen.
Russell Brand clipped this sort of. I thought he was going to be joking in his defense of Jerry Seinfeld being hit with a protester taking a selfie and then saying "Free Palestine," and then Jerry Seinfeld says something we all know. Jerry, he doesn't care about Palestine. Shock, amazing. But anyway, here's Russell Brand's take on the quote tweet, the thing he tweeted was, "This is a breach of the selfie contract period." Now, I still, to my shame, credited Russell Brand thinking he was being sort of tongue in cheek about that, but well, let's see.
No longer.
Jerry, can I get a selfie?
Sure.
Free Palestine!
I don't care about Palestine.
That's sad.
I feel like it's a breach of the selfie contract. If you want to get a selfie with Seinfeld, you've got to say, I'm an admirer of your stand-up comedy, I love the show.
Oh.
Selfie. Also, though, I've got strong views on the Israel-Palestine conflict.
Strong views.
I'm going to just bring that up in the midst of this.
Strong views. First of all, him saying the Israel-Palestine conflict is telling in and of itself. I'm sorry. Before he was essentially compromised by Rumble and all this stuff because of his sexual abuse allegations and he can't get his cash any other way, there is no way that Russell Brand wouldn't be doing like even what the Dave Smith libertarian guy is doing or what Theo Vaughn is doing. Joe Rogan called it a genocide, but we have this captured former comedian Russell Brand,
Venture capitalist asset Russell Brand,
who is just completely capitulating. I mean, as you say, Matt, like just having some familiarity with this work, it's like an alien has taken over his body, but it's really just that he was such an abuser of women, allegedly, that this is all he has left at this point. Also, Jerry, you do care about Palestine because you cared about it enough for you and your wife to fund counter protesters at UCLA or USC, I'm forgetting which LA-based college it was, to harass the pro-Palestine encampment there. He cares a lot about Palestine, just he cares a lot about it, seeing it eliminated.
Yeah, and I think I'd be curious to survey some of the late 2010s Russell Brand content on Palestine. Imagine maybe there was a little bit of more courage there before he was entirely sort of succumbed to right-wing influence. But I will say, as somebody who, and I'm not joking about this, I go way back with Russell Brand, including this video here, if you can pull this up, Bradley, from 2006, I believe it is. Russell Brand, episode 22 of the BBC Six Music show. I've probably listened to all of these back like 15 or so years ago, like a dozen or so times, and if I'm being completely honest, I still think a good chunk of it's funny, particularly his producer Matt Morgan. But this part has always stuck out to me, where his co-host Trevor Locke makes a joke about Russell Brand. And before I get to that joke, what he's talking about is Russell was in a coffee shop and was impatient to grab a paper when somebody had bounced their coffee on the paper, and Russell just pulled the paper out and it spilled. And so they're talking about this. You can already see, like, it's pretty antisocial behavior. But anyway, here's Russell sort of defending himself. Go even 5 seconds back on this. And then you hear Trevor Locke come in with a joke. And then Russell Brand, not always the most careful broadcaster. In fact, he got fired for being just insanely rude to people. But here he is a little bit skittish about touching on a certain subject.
This happened.
He was covered in coffee.
It wasn't his paper, it was a municipal paper. He could have asked me, would you mind lifting out that coffee, young fella, my lad, whilst I take
He just
paper?
whipped out the paper, knocked his...
Sorry, it was Russell's coffee that it was placing on the stack of newspapers that a guy wanted, and the guy started grabbing the paper, so Russell bat his coffee all over the guy, which is even more insane than I remember it. Sorry.
Me, would you mind lifting out that coffee, young fella, my lad, whilst I take
He just
paper?
whipped out the paper, knocked his coffee over.
Like, because what it was, he thought, oh, look at them two people, oh, look at them, oh, look at them damned long hairs. I'll take that paper from underneath there, I'll show them who's boss. But we found out who was boss. It was me, for the first time in my life, kicking something with some degree of accuracy.
That is a show of unreasonable force. You know what I mean?
it wasn't.
You are the Israel of pedestrian etiquette.
Trevor, that's a really complicated issue that I don't think we should discuss on this show. We don't know about
A little bit more.
things like that. It's terrible that there's any war anywhere in the world. It's terrible that there's war anywhere in the world. I wish everyone could be happy like me and old Cocky Locky, who we love really
So there
dearly.
it was. So you are the Israel of pedestrian etiquette, and Russell's Brand is, that's very complicated. I don't think we should get into stuff like that.
Wow, I overestimated it. I overestimated his. I thought that maybe he would have been a bit more, I don't know, he was somebody who basically said that Labour in the UK wasn't delivering enough for working people for him to justify voting for them until Jeremy Corbyn. I would assume that those politics would align with being pro-Palestine.
He did come out in favor of Miliband, but I mean, ultimately, that was where his audience was. Like, he wasn't ready to turn Tory like he is now.
But can we also just return to the selfie contract thing? I mean, can you imagine the level of just entitlement about saying that, like, we are not as famous as Jerry Seinfeld or famous at all. I'm like on the Z list or whatever. But
we get noticed in public.
Occasionally get noticed in public and occasionally are asked for a selfie. The idea that I would think that there's some sort of contract involved here, or there needs to be an exchange of goods or services or an understanding between people is ridiculous. If a pro-Israel person had come up to me and said something like, yay, Zionism, I wouldn't be bitching about some contract being broken.
Yeah.
I mean, but
that's not the problem. It's the Zionism.
But right, exactly. But that is what Brand is relating to another rich comedian there and essentially saying is like, don't call me out if I'm going to do you the favor of standing to take a photo with you.
Ooh la la.
Maybe later we can go back to my hotel room and that'll be a part of my fame contract. But the selfie contract means that you basically shut the hell up if I'm going to stop and take my time out of the day to have a conversation with you. It's so entitled and weird.
Yeah, we are your betters. If you would like to take a selfie with me, you can say how much you admire me, and that's it. That's about it.
That's basically about it.
That's contract law. That's
contract law.
Right. Yeah, I would say that maybe Jerry's selfie contract is a little bit different, right? He's had some other, issues with, I would say, maybe young women himself, perhaps women under the age of 18 that he may or may not have dated or definitely did date. That
I just know that when the reporting came out that he was allegedly calling one of them the child.
Russell Brand.
Regardless of what age, regardless if that person was 20 or whatever, I don't fully recall, but that's still sick view of somebody that you're sleeping with.
I was referring to Jerry and his dating history, so that's what I'm saying.
That is much more clear. Yeah, sorry about that.
I was referring to, but it's hard to pick which of these disgraced, Jerry less so, but he should be more, comedians who have
got there earlier.
Allegedly dated underage girls. Which one of them are we referring to?
You can also find an interesting phone call from that Russell Brand radio show with what's the guy? Jim will fix it. The disgraced pedophile. I forget what his name is. His show was Jim will fix it.
I like disgraced pedophile. Like at one point he was an in good standing pedophile.
Kind of, because everyone knew that he was fucking weird, including Russell Brand, who called him on the radio show when the guy was out for dinner, bragging about young women being with him and setting him up.
Oh boy.
It's Jimmy Savile. So if you search Jimmy Savile, Russell Brand phone call.
Yeah.
Kind of a weird call to listen to. Weird call, weird thing. That's one of the things that made me unable to continue to repeat my listening of all of these BBC episodes, sort of once I became not in my early 20s.
It is crazy, that clip you played where I think what people like about Russell Brand is he's like totally erratic energy, and then watching him now, it's so like you can tell he's like really controlling what he's saying. It's hard. His show is so hard to watch. I don't know. It's like not even fun to watch because you could tell he's watching what he says so closely.
You can see the depreciated soul just right.
Oh
in front
yeah.
of you.
Oh yeah. He's going to have to do a lot of his yoga and meditation.
As he becomes completely spiritually bereft, he's turning towards like Christianity in this extremely weird late convert way.
Some might call cynical.
Yes, maybe.
Oh yeah, might not be the most genuine. Yeah,
retrofitting.
Bear Grylls out here with the holy water.
Yeah, trying to assure some of his new audience that he's not a godless commie or something like that. I don't know if you've been keeping up with the Resistance, Ryan, but. Chuck Schumer's got it down.
I'm leading it.
Oh, you're leading it.
Oh my God.
Do you take your orders
he's my
from
second
Chuck?
in command. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm a huge Chuck guy. I'm a huge Chuck fan. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, like, you must have then, as the leader of the resistance or the lieutenant or, you know, working alongside Chuck, you must have also gotten the memo, from Cory Booker. For people that are not familiar, it was reported that Cory Booker had a meeting with his Senate colleagues about how to more effectively use social media.
Oh, thank God.
I want them to use social media, but I don't really think I want Chuck to use social media. Here he is trying his darndest. And I wish I could just laugh at this guy and be like, all right, Grandpa, trying to use social media. There are no stakes here. It's funny. But this is the guy that's supposed to be the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. All right, maybe this will be rousing. Here we go.
Today began the long budget process, and it became very clear what the number one goal of the Republicans is: to give their billionaire buddies a tax break and have it be on your back. We Senate Democrats are going to expose them. We're going to lift up the curtain and show that everything else they do is to help hide the fact that their billionaire buddies are going to get a tax break under their proposal. Why does Donald Trump talk about the Gulf of America and putting hotels in Gaza and annexing Canada? He wants to hide the fact from you that their main goal, what they're really pursuing on the floor of the Senate, is giving their billionaire buddies a tax break.
Okay.
Is that crazy? Is that ridiculous? These people are very rich. The veteran who needs health care isn't very rich. The elderly person who's in a nursing home isn't very rich. These billionaire buddies are rich already. And yet all they want to do is give them another tax break. Shame, shame, shame. We're going to fight it tooth and nail.
Okay, what do you stand for now? Thank you, Chuck. Again, it's not that bad. It's better than before. I'm trying so hard to not be an asshole.
These people are very rich.
Like, at a certain level, dude, like, you have to understand that you are not the man for this moment. Hakeem Jeffries, it's a whole different can of worms where I genuinely think he's just like, Matt's made this point, of the post-Citizens United era, just a politician that has been bathing in corporate and donor money in a way that even the person who's picked him as his successor, Nancy Pelosi, I've got a million problems with her. She was claiming China was funding pro-Palestine demonstrators outside of her house. Lots of crazy things that she said and stuff I've disagreed with. But it's almost like she came in from an age where, prior to this, where they were still doing politics in a way that was about combating Republicans, and she could count votes, and she's shrewd about where the public stands on certain things. Hakeem Jeffries, actually, I'm sorry. This is the clip. It's only 20 seconds. This was his reaction coming out of the meeting with Hochul and a bunch of other top-ranking Democrats about removing Eric Adams, which Hochul has the power to do, a man who is the mayor of New York City who is currently being extorted publicly, openly, brazenly by the Republican president of the United States to enforce immigration raids against New Yorkers and go along with his agenda, or else they're going to re-up this prosecution of him. This is how Hakeem Jeffries responded, our Democratic leader in the House.
Mayor Adams has a responsibility to decisively demonstrate to the people of New York City that he has the capacity to continue to govern in the best interest of New Yorkers.
The capacity
as opposed to taking orders from the Trump administration. Mayor Adams has.
What do you mean he can't demonstrate it because he's being extorted? Why are they giving him the opportunity to basically wiggle out of this and say that maybe he's being extorted, maybe he's not being extorted? No, he is. The Scalia clerk, Trump-appointed interim federal prosecutor at the Southern District, Federalist Society, the Southern District of New York. Trump appointed her on January 21st, 2025, resigned, saying that this was what it is. So I'm not joking. Hakeem Jeffries is being more favorable to Republicans in his messaging about this issue than Trump's own Republican appointee at the head of the Southern District and the half dozen other prosecutors that resigned beneath her, refusing to implement the same order until they finally got their Bork. Here's some more. But God is on the throne. Presidents come and go. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about creeping fascism. We got some more, I guess, from Jeffries. Ken Klippenstein doing God's work. Just just continuing to promote the most unflattering portrayal of this feckless leader.
Captain Chaos and the extreme MAGA Republicans spent last year promising to lower the high cost of living and running away from Project 2025 as if it didn't exist.
Okay, you guys.
Sorry, who's Captain Chaos?
Captain Chaos.
I'm unfamiliar. Who is that? Is that a new Marvel character? Who is that?
I mean,
who are we talking about?
He's gonna be maybe in Batman 7, the villain that they crop up to fight him.
You know who that appeals to? All the capitalists who don't want tariffs to fuck up their mergers and acquisitions schedule. That's the only people these people can talk to.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, he's being outflanked by a majority of his caucus. I don't think I've seen this kind of reaction to Democratic leadership from the base of the Democratic Party and their inability to lead since I've been following politics. And perhaps it's just the lack of familiarity, and people are so angry that they don't have this built up, like, yeah, I kind of like Pelosi, yeah, I like Harry Reid, whatever, where they can, at a certain, during the Biden years and during the Trump years, Democratic voters approve of Nancy Pelosi at high clips. It's like 70, 80%, right? But maybe now that Jeffries is kind of a relative unknown, and the first thing they see of him is him going, what leverage do we have? And people are also feeling betrayed by, like, I've been watching MSNBC for 8 years in the Trump era, and they've told me the most important thing is to resist Donald Trump. And then Morning Joe goes and kisses the ring and says, okay, we're going to be hands off on our criticisms now because we're afraid. There is a disconnect from what the voters want and what we're seeing from the party. And it's much more pronounced, I think, with the Washington people who are bathing in this DC consultant class and all that big money. And then what we see with Democratic governors like Pritzker, who's like, I'm going to fight him. I'm going to protect New Yorkers. Whitmer, I'm going to do the same. Walz, the way he governed. There's hope there, but it's really hard to find it in Washington. And there are just a handful of people like AOC and the Squad and a few senators, Sanders, of course, Warren, etc., doing the actual resistance. But the rest of them are really hopeless.
Hakeem Jeffries knows who he wants to resist. Just 3 hours ago, Leader Jeffries' statement on the anti-Semitic protests in Borough Park, the violent anti-Semitic rhetoric directed at Jewish residents. First of all, I'm not going to read any more of this bullshit lie by a Zionist asset that ultimately cannot fight fascism because he's too compromised by corporate and Zionist interests. That protest is about land sales in the West Bank. The fact that people who call out anti-Semitism cannot be honest about the reason for these protests in certain areas is malicious, or it is morally cowardly to the utmost extent. And anybody who does it, including Jeffries here, the leader of the minority party that is supposed to be resisting fascism, spends more time smearing protests as anti-Semitic that are protesting illegal land sales. These guys can't do it. Because Hakeem Jeffries is more concerned with what AIPAC wants than what the American people wants.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me to see how the Democrats react to Donald Trump winning the popular vote by a plurality. In the end, he got less than 50%. And they're acting like this is the Obama 08 mandate. And you know how the Republicans responded in 2008? And Obama had literally at one point for a very short period 60 Democratic senators. McConnell went into a room and said, we are going to make sure that Obama's a one-term president. And they failed, but they did obstruct basically all of the most ambitious agenda items that he had. And they were extremely successful in the midterms throughout the next 6 years of Obama being president. And so we could have just basically copy pasted this model and changed the R to D. But instead, this is the opposition that we have. I mean, I wonder where this goes. And I wonder if there's like an actual grassroots fury that can be channeled into something like this. We're seeing that there are a lot of federal workers who have been fired who are looking to run for office. And I wonder if that includes primarying guys like Hakeem Jeffries. I wonder if that includes primarying guys like Jerry Connolly. I think that that's a distinct possibility, but it's the kind of thing where it's like, what's the mechanism that we should look at right here? Because Justice Democrats, we've had them on the show, but they don't really have the same resources that they used to. Maybe we should be doing a bit more of that. But I also think, DSA plays a role in this as well.
And ultimately, like, the question is, why is it so hard to emphasize people over profit? And the trouble is, it's because that's something that's pretty bipartisan. This profit is more important. That was the response to the 2008 financial crisis. We need to capitalize the banks more than the people getting out of the homes. When people like me were upset about privatizing NASA and stuff like that, saying, hey, that's going to have bad long-term consequences. Now it's Elon Musk. Like, you have to be deliberate about this sort of stuff, and you can't hope that the profit motive is going to save us. It is going to lead to planes crashing.
Dark Soul writes in, don't worry, they are on it. Jamie Harrison is coming out and calling Ken a racist for criticizing Jeffrey so much.
Apparently Ken never goes after Chuck Schumer, which is news to me.
Well, he's also anti-Semitic, so that is
that wouldn't prove anything. Good point.
Duh. Yeah.
Jamie Harrison, I mean, can we get that guy a job? Like, manual labor, maybe?
He already is sitting pretty. I mean, he did what he needed to do. He made sure that Biden got to run for re-election and made sure that South Carolina came first in that primary schedule, saving our democracy from Trump.
Did you see Stephen A. Smith?
No.
1 second.
Okay. Well, I'm over that stuff. I find it. I love, and the thing is I have a love in my heart for Stephen A. as a New York sports fan. But this whole like dalliance with running for president is pissing me off.
He's kind of all over the place, that guy, Stephen A. Smith. I don't really know what he believes sometimes. He's, I never know.
He's friends with Mark Levin. I don't trust him as far as, I could throw him.
He's friends with Sean Hannity. That's why he keeps getting those media hits and debating him. He does a good job because he's skilled at that, but like...
And he's like, attuned to discourse and not afraid to say things that a lot of people are afraid to say, which, I mean,
But he describes himself as a centrist, and I'm not necessarily down for that. And I don't know, like, can we have a politician run? It doesn't work the same way on the left with celebrities. Like, I'm sorry.
I want people who have actually done things like Tim Walz. That's not it, actually. It's this one here.
What do we have? Stephen A?
Stephen A. Smith talking with one of the Podjon guys, Vitor maybe, calls out the Democratic establishment for constantly trying to choose their leaders. If you see that one, Bradley.
Ooh, that's not bad then. I'll take this over him essentially saying that, trans athletes are ruining women's rights, he said the other day.
Democrats were boring. We're the NBA skills competition where Wemby's cheating, while Trump is the USA-Canada hockey game where there's 3 fights in 10 seconds and you can't look away. And like, I don't know how to compete with that. We don't have a leader who can compete with that. We don't have a party that can compete with that. We don't have a message that can compete with that.
But tell why. You can't compete with that, and you don't have that. I'm not talking about you specifically, of course.
I know.
About the Democratic Party. You don't know that, and you can't compete with that for the biggest reason of all, because y'all are too busy trying to pick candidates for the American people instead of listening to the American people tell you who they want. The last Democrat that the American people told you they wanted was Barack Obama.
Oh.
Hillary Clinton. It's her turn. Bernie Sanders had momentum. It's Hillary's turn. Joe Biden captured momentum because Representative Clyburn got involved in South Carolina, saved his behind, but it's really, really his turn, okay? He has no business running for re-election, but everybody went for it, knowing he was supposed to be transitioning. He's going to be 81 years of age. Then you sit up there. He doesn't have a primary. Then he goes on the debate stage, embarrasses himself. Then y'all still let him take 3 damn weeks to walk away instead of getting the hell out there immediately so you can see if there's somebody other than Kamala Harris who could be the Democratic nominee. Then she gets the nomination, and everybody wants to act like she's the rock star all of y'all wanted all along. Oh, my God, let's throw up our hands and just say, hey, she is the one, when you know good and damn well that wasn't the truth. Meanwhile, Trump has been around since 2015. They had Christie, they had Kasich, they had Fiorini, I believe her name is. You had later on, you had DeSantis, you had Nikki Haley, you had Ramaswamy, you had all of these people. It didn't matter. We went through lawfare and all this stuff. It didn't matter. They looked the public in the face and they said, we want him. We don't care what y'all want, and forced the Republican Party to capitulate to the demands of their constituency. That's what they did. The Democrats somehow, some way have gotten away with ignoring the constituency and compelling the constituency to capitulate to what they want as a party. And that is the problem. And that's why I said it all needs to go. Some of those candidates need to go. The pundits, the strategists, they need to go. Whoever was involved with the latest election, from a strategy standpoint, every one of them should be fired. Every one of them.
I'm back on board, question mark?
Yeah.
No, I mean, he's a great critic. Being a critic is a very different role than being president. I want to be clear. But everything he's saying there is accurate. And that's been a lot of it's echoed a lot of what I've been saying about the last, in the postmortems, about the lack of democratic responsiveness. And both with the genocide in Gaza, which is what a majority of his base wanted. I mean, there was a poll in YouGov that said only like 9% of Democratic voters sympathize more with the Israelis right now than and then it's like,
and I would encourage them to be Republicans,
say,
please. I don't want them to vote in my primaries.
Yeah, the majority say Palestinians, and then below that is like both. And so my point is just like that, between that and not listening to their base on that, and then also not listening to the base on, we want somebody other than Joe Biden. You can't talk about democracy and Donald Trump's very real threat, as we're seeing right now, without showing a responsiveness to those two key issues. It made it feel like it's not just about saying vote for us on election day. It's about saying we're going to be the people, the party that responds to the will of the people more directly, as opposed to the right. And for all of Trump's many, many faults, he has that transactional quality to them where he actually cares about feeding something to the masses, even if it is just like, hey, I'll bring RFK Jr. on board, who could have shaved off a few percentage points of my total, and then I will make him Human Health Services Secretary, and I will appease the Maha constituency. That's something that the Democrats don't do. They do what, Jamie Harrison does. We're going to make it so that we have no primary process and that the 81-year-old guy gets to the forefront, gets to the top again. Lydia Rose, Stephen A. is a tough one. I see a clip and get screaming mad because he said something stupid, or incredibly impressed that he stands up for the right thing. I don't get it. He's a
blowhard.
Lydia.
Yeah, it's a sports talk guy.
It's sports talk, which I have a deep, some of the better arguers. He literally has made arguments for a living for 40 years, and of the New York sports personalities, he's actually maybe the most sane, like more than Anita Bryant. Wait, what's her last name? Anita Bryant is the politician, right? Yeah. No, Anita Bryant is the ESPN woman, right?
I don't watch ESPN.
Okay. Or is Anita Bryant the anti-feminist person?
Anita Bryant's
I know who you're talking about.
Anita Marks. Better than Anita Marks, better than Mad Dog, whatever. But yeah, I mean,
remember Jim Rome?
He's a great critic.
Oh, yeah.
And he would be a great Democratic, if they had the right candidate. He'd be a great surrogate. Like, take Stephen A. any day over Mark Cuban, for example. But Kate in LA said, I want more future talk, less past talk. Dems suck, we know. No, I know. I'm trying to balance that too.
We're going to completely redo the same mistakes if we don't understand why you can't talk about why the party is not standing up to fascism without talking about why the selection process that led to Hakeem Jeffries being the leader of the party.
I agree. I just also want to, we did a lot of Trump stuff yesterday. It's a balancing act of what Matt describes, and then also responding to the horror show that we see today. But fair point. Black-pilled Kiwi says, I don't know why you guys are so surprised about how the Dems are acting. I think the only ones who realize that the Rubicon has been crossed, and if you're too adversarial to the current administration, you're likely to end up out of a window soon. They don't have popular support, so they'll capitulate to save themselves.
They do have popular support that could easily be called upon, but they're too corrupt to actually get on the back of it. There's a huge popular will to resist this administration. And the reason that they can't really harness is because they can't simply say things like, except people like AOC or Bernie or the Social Democrats, that people should be put above profit, which is what is meant when Trump and co say efficiency.
Greg from Arkansas says, R.M. Brown is the mouthpiece of our generation. Which generation? Every single one.
Yes.
I don't get that one, but
I'll Venmo that guy later for
Nice.
saying that. Thank you.
Jack from Queens, Matt, that album isn't by Pink Floyd. It's Houses of the Holy by Zeppelin.
Oh, right.
Oh, for real. That's right.
Oh, great. We got a record collector in there correcting
What?
everything. Thank you. Thank you.
Tim Poole's
No, that's not it. You're not. It is Pink Floyd. I mean, we'll have to put this.
Yeah,
up.
because it has all the album covers painted on them, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
I remember the
I know
rainbow.
the Houses of the Holy album cover. That's not what we're talking about. No.
Not your
If you search Pink Floyd, sorry, Emma. If you search Pink Floyd poster women, you'll see what we're talking about.
Not your state rep says, I'm putting money on credit cards because I lost my job. Gotta love software layoffs. Yeah.
And I mean, that's another thing is efficiency. Why is it efficient that the people that build these companies up get to be laid off so that the parasites who own equity in it can just gather more passive income? And that's taken as a good performing company. Our metrics are completely fucked.
Yeah, that's where we would probably all like disagree with Stephen A. Smith when he's like, "Oh, they're not listening to their constituents. No, they're like enemies of their, like they're class enemies. You know, like I mean,
oh man,
you know.
There it is. I headlined this earlier, but it's a record. Look at that. Look at that. Credit card debt hits a record 1.2 trillion.
Whoa.
So that entire time we were told the economy was roaring and so the incumbent was going to win.
Yeah, it is astounding, and you can see that. I mean, it hits a low in 2021. I would imagine that had to do somewhat with the stimulus, but also for a lot of people staying home, not going out to dinner or traveling. Maybe that might have put a large balance on their credit card.
But my stimmy definitely went to credit cards.
Yeah, mine too.
Yep.
But then you see greedflation, inflation, and the prices have continued to go up and rent has continued to go up without the wage increases that would go along with it. And so, yeah, it's like that was the Matt Iglesias type saying that the economy was really good. Did a lot of harm this election cycle.
And they had the reasons for doing it was because they don't look at it from your perspective. They look at it from perspective people who make money by owning things with the money that they already had.
Right.
Not from people who work for a living. From a parasite perspective, the economy is booming, and like Europe's jealous of our parasites that they can make so much money passively just by owning stuff.
Calling from an 585 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from? 585.
You're on the air.
Hello, 585.
Dump this guy.
Going once, going twice, sold, bonk. Calling from an 802 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from?
Hello.
Hi, this is Molly. Hi, can you hear me?
Hey, Molly, how you doing?
Hey, Molly, how are you?
Well done, Ryan.
Great. I'm calling from Brooklyn, and I'm calling about I teach journalism in the age of Trump, and I'm teaching journalism in the machine, which is an AI journalism course. And I would love to talk about how best to teach students I also am a Wikipedian, and how we can teach in I don't want to say post-truth, but in an alternate fact ecosystem.
Sure.
What do you think are the best ways I can protect my students from all of this misinformation?
Oof. Okay, so do you teach at the college?
Yeah, I teach at the new school.
Oh, well, I mean, if you're teaching there, I would imagine your students are pretty probably socially conscious. But like, gosh, it's such a tough question, I guess. I mean, basically, I would say that teaching media literacy is really important, right? There are a lot of publications that Actually, I'll transition to this after we hang up because this is important. But one of the biggest misinformation campaigns of the past 2 or 3 years has been about violent crime and crime in this country. And there are a lot of publications that are reputable, like NBC or something like that, or CNN, just as hypothetical examples, but I think they did do this, which will repeat, say, like, what they're told by the public relations arm of a target, which is that shoplifting is cutting into our profits, and that's why we have to close X store. And the headline will be exactly what the corporation and their public relations team claim. And then 6 months later, we will get articles like the one I'm going to read in a sec that completely contradicted. And there are a lot of people that will take that at face value. So I think maybe the one thing I would say is to get people to look through articles and see where the sourcing is coming from. Sometimes they'll just be anonymous sources, but they'll indicate if that source is like a government employee. Okay, great. This is what journalism is for. Government employees are supposed to leak to the press when something horrible is happening, and then they can get, that kind of sourcing. Is it Target executives say, or this real estate group says? Is this a study that's commissioned by a corporate entity or by, say, a university looking into this kind of thing? Those would be, I think, the easiest ways for people to start from the ground up with the media literacy in the Trump era, because once you kind of have that baseline understanding of, like, when you're reading an article, where is this information coming from, it solves some issues for people.
I just have one quick thing.
And I'm teaching. Oh, sorry. Yeah. No. I was just saying more specifically, I teach AI journalism. So it's about journalism and how it can be very formulaic. So I'm thinking, like, what are we going to do in this? And I also used to work for a crypto publication. So the whole Doge thing is what I'm thinking about currently, and how all of these algorithms are pilfering the public data and the public financial data, and how I'm going to teach this to students to what are journalism organizations going to do when all of these algorithms are just feeding on top of each other and just rehashing what Doge says. Instead of going to Twitter, we can go to Gronk.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Gronk.
Gronk is
I like Gronk.
New England Patriots.
Yeah. Gronk is that noise, that coconut
Gronk
noise.
is Gronk's, like, exactly. Gronk might be the Grok's cousin who actually reports real news.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of things that I would say is, like, one, encourage them to read news. And I say that as a visual medium politics show, but I read the Financial Times every night. I think that's probably the best one. Although even, like, I can't support the New York Times given their coverage of
the
Israel.
Washington Post is better, even if they want a more mainstream source. Washington Post over the New York Times.
But also, then there's a secondary thing where, I went to NYU for media master's degree. I've been introduced, even by a teacher who served in the IDF and is a massive supporter of Israel to this day, by critics of the technological sort of optimism of that time that served me well to this day. I'm thinking of one person that you should introduce your readers to is Ed Zitron, and his take on AI and stuff, to understand that, like, a lot of our media is run by the same interests that have an interest in pushing, say, an AI bubble or something like that. Even the Financial Times, which is my paper, is not skeptical enough, I don't think, of the amount of money that's being invested towards these sorts of products. I think it's important to have those sorts of influences on. Evgeny Morozov was one of the guys who I read at NYU that's sort of a critique of the techno-utopian thing. So I think inserting not only just a general, like, read things, don't watch TV, or, God forbid, trust AI. You have to go to the actual reporting. Because the thing about AI is, like, there's already a selection process that goes into important material in journalism. It's called editors and the journalists themselves. Like, they order stuff with the inverted pyramid. Like this is all already sort of pre-algorithmic, emphasizing what's important. So have people go to the actual. You're just going to be smarter. Like I'm somebody who I'll occasionally use software to look at a PDF and break it down, but you know that that you're something lacking if you don't actually read all of that and you're missing it. And you should just be encouraged to spend the time in thought of actually reading sources.
I went to NYU journalism school, and I've been working in media throughout my entire career. I've worked for Fox News, CNN, CBS, all the big ones. But now I'm teaching it, and my last course was all about AI hype. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I was talking about the concept of kayfabe and how this is the reality, and these are the things that the alternative facts that they want you to consume, specifically in AI hype. And I've been the victor and the victim of all the technical hype cycle bubbles. So this is just an exciting one that we're in now.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Matt's exactly right in terms of what you should you can be encouraging, but also just to say, to develop this kind of understanding where with your students of like, this is not all of the material that's being inputted into these AI models. You can't necessarily rely on what the model is going to emphasize and what it's going to deprioritize, because these are all being made decisions made by these are all decisions being made by a major corporation that has financial incentives to deprioritize certain information and prioritize it. Like, your students wouldn't just Google search something and then take just the top responses and put that into an art or a piece that they're writing for you, right? If you could frame it like that to them. That's what AI is. It's just doing it in a fancier, more digestible way where it writes out full sentences and they respond more adequately to the questions that you're asking. But it still is a selection process that's being put forth by a corporation for profit incentives. I mean, Google, like half these posts that when you search for things now are promoted. And that means that they're getting paid to be put to the top.
Right.
And AI is just building off of that. So
yeah,
does that answer your question, Molly?
Yeah, I'm excited about all of the topics that this is sparking. All of this discussion has been helpful in kind of organizing my own thoughts in this. So I'm so grateful to everybody at the Majority Report. Obviously, I'm a Wikipedian, so I'm going to be calling in often to just find the truth, because you guys are the only ones who are really diving into a lot of these it's just you and Brooke Gladstone are on the forefront of really breaking down the news.
Appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
Also, like, I think we have like a kind of baseline, like, ethical code too, which AI and technology and like propaganda can't give you. I think if you, as a teacher, help people develop that, then you can see through a lot of propaganda. Like, if we believe basically like life should get better for the average person, like materially, if you just have that baseline belief, you can spot propaganda easier.
Right.
And AI and stuff can't, it's just pulling things that are already out there. It's not going to be able to teach you that. I think that's also like something that teachers have to do.
Yeah, and I think the truth is, and how even the players running AI see it, is this is the next search. So how Google sort of won the first generation of the internet by doing search, AI is sort of the next generation. And that's what it's useful for, as a really good search engine, basically.
Yeah.
But it's not like a superhuman intelligence that can sort of deliberate as if it was God. And here's just a Financial Times piece. This is from a couple weeks ago. It comes as Meta has doubled down, Facebook, on its investment in AI to power its recommendations for its content feeds on Facebook and Instagram and boost how brands can target users in a boon to its advertising.
Ding, ding,
business.
ding. How do they make it profitable? Right now, they just have to get investment. And this is what the whole DeepSeek thing caused, this freak out with, which was really fun
Open
to cover at
source.
the time. Right.
Yeah.
Because the expense of this, or like the amount of investment that has gone into this, is not matching the cost to develop it. And it's really just another wealth transfer, but it's also a way for these tech companies, whether it's Meta or OpenAI and I forgot what's Google's. Is Google with OpenAI?
No, Google.
Well, they have their own AI though.
I forget what it is, but there's a decent.
Gemini.
No, that's Samsung, isn't it? I don't know. Who knows?
Either way, it's helping buoy these tech companies that have, again, bumped up against the limit of like the practical things that they can provide for people. But it will be useful as a larger search engine. It's just not matching the amount of speculation that it's engendered in our economy. What, Bradley?
Just kind of bouncing off what we sort of were talking about yesterday with like right-wing material. It's sort of a similar thing with like AI, and I also think harken back to like the previous boondoggle, which was like, the metaverse or whatever. It's like these things can sort of be like when they have such lofty ambitions, it also sort of masks like when something is sort of a glorified search engine, but it's also like AI might be able to like solve world peace or like solve what's happening in Israel and Gaza. It's also like, like don't think about like joining a union when AI is here. Like you can't
it's
join
a new god.
You can't join a union in the metaverse. You can't you don't need health insurance in the metaverse. Like if there's AI can help you with your health insurance.
You don't need a girlfriend. You can connect on the
right. You don't need other you don't need other modes of human interaction if you have AI. Right. Sublimate and substitute every single aspect of your actual like direct human needs with our product to make us richer and you like more of like a hollowed out shell of a human.
Spike Jones called it in 2013.
Literally like over a decade ago.
With her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's venture capitalists basically colonizing our collective hopes for the future, which is like how like the crypto people were the worst of this, because crypto has zero redeeming value except for money laundering and buying drugs and stuff.
Yes.
But those people were saying, we're going to solve Israel-Palestine or something like that too, and it's just because they're looking for attention to get more people to invest in it. Like just dump money anywhere you can find it.
If they were, it would be funner if they were honest about the AI stuff. Like, hey, it's a thing that borrows from a bunch of stuff.
Quick.
Yeah.
But then that presents some intellectual property issues. Don't talk about that.
Whoops.
Joanna says, I'm a huge RM Brown fan. He makes me belly laugh. Just want to say, you're looking great, my dude. Joanna from Louisville says that. So, want to send that your way.
Thanks, Joanna.
I said I'd do this call. We're a little afield of it, but I do think it's important to point this out that there has been, since the pandemic, a concerted effort by right-wing media, but also by our social media platforms that elevate content that causes angry reactions or fury. We've seen this when, Facebook has opened up its books, and that's why they put political content does so well on those platforms, which they deprioritize in the 6 months leading up to the election, by the way. They said, we're not going to do political content anymore. It makes people too upset, even though that goes against their engagement models, because they wanted Donald Trump to win. And one of the biggest indicators for in exit polling of whether or not you voted for Donald Trump was if you consume little to no political news or you consume it mostly on social media. And they got their wish. And now they've throttled political content back up because they got their guy, but we want the engagement back. And so much of it is like at the beginning of your feed, race war fight. Like, look at how scary the subway is. Watch this.
Here's a crowd of getting beat up by non-white teenagers.
Right.
Yeah, it's like verified fight accounts, and all of the replies are either like other viral clips, porn, or blue check accounts. Blue check accounts being like, I probably would have beaten that guy up, actually.
Right. And there were, honestly, I mean, it's like the New York Post. I also think the elevation of a lot of true crime, which the victims are almost always white, 95% of the time white women, that is like a part of, a lot of this mass media consumption has made people extremely fearful. And there were many claims made by centrist media sources, by right-wing media sources, by purportedly left-wing media sources, that all this data is lying to you and crime is going through the roof. Well, we now have data on 2024. We have talked about how crime went down in 2023 after our once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. There was a spike, but crime has been on the decline for decades and decades, and now that trend continues into the first data that we have from 2024. Homicides dropped 16% according to the preliminary data that we're seeing in 2024. Stats compiled by the Major Cities Chiefs Association suggest that the COVID-era crime wave was all but evaporated during President Biden's final year in office. Even as Donald Trump claims that crime was rising, became a key part of his winning election strategy. Violent crime, especially homicides, rose during Biden's first 2 years as president before dropping dramatically in the next 2 years, the MCCA data show. An Axios analysis of the preliminary crime data for 2024 from 69 self-reporting large police departments found that violent crimes decreased overall by 6%, robberies 9%, rape 6%, aggravated assault 5%, all declined, an Axios analysis found. Many cities had significantly larger declines in homicides. They dropped 35% in Boston and New Orleans, 26% in Cleveland and Dallas, 34% in Philadelphia, 32% in Washington, D.C. Philadelphia, I thought that was being run by the pro-crime Larry Krasner. Yeah. Interesting. The data does not include New York City. But the data that they have released says that crime has been declining. So perhaps that will cut into this percentage. But I also want to point out data from 2023 because this would be consistent with that. This is the FBI's more complete data that we have on 2023, the previous year. Violent crime in the U.S. dropped in 2023, according to FBI statistics that showed a continued trend downward after a coronavirus pandemic-era crime spike. Overall, violent crime declined an estimated 3% in 2023 from the year before, according to the FBI report Monday. Murders and non-negligent manslaughter dropped nearly 12%. There's another part here that's really fascinating. If we could just, so crime surged during the coronavirus pandemic, with homicides increasing nearly 30% in 2020 over the previous year, the largest one-year jump since the FBI began keeping records. Now, if you want to cast aspersions on this data and say, oh, well, it's incomplete, the decline is overstated, then you would have to cast aspersions on the data that you had previously been using. Because it's all using the same methodology for the most part. And there will be incomplete data that's added later. But is this not the right article, Bradley? Oh, okay. Oh, I sent you an Associated Press one. This is NBC from September 23rd. The headline is FBI finds violent crime decline in 2023. Here's what to know about the report. So sorry if I sent you the wrong link, but you don't even need to find it. This one part that just was, I think, important to point out here is that, here it is. Because all of the focus on cities. Here we go. Law enforcement agencies in the biggest municipalities in the U.S., communities with at least 1 million people, showed the biggest drop in violent crime last year, nearly 7%. Okay, this is 2023. Agencies and communities between 250,000 and 499,000, so between 250K and 500K, reported a slight increase, 0.3% between 2022 and 2023. So these are small to mid-sized cities with less than 1 million people. But how many people are in New York City? 8 million? 8 million people, 8.2. All right, so I was pretty close. That would not fall in that category. Cities over 1 million people, that means I don't know, most of the major cities in this country saw a bigger decrease in violent crime than the rest of the country in 2023. And now we're having data of like a couple dozen percentage decreases of murders in cities like the ones I just listed in 2024, where the data is currently available. This has been a complete, utter lie from the beginning that has been used to justify things like this. I know I'm going on for a while, but the White House put out this damn disgusting ASMR thing, mainstreaming the shackling of tens of thousands of people who are immigrants. And we now know from the data that it's a majority non-criminals, but they're counting anybody that crossed the border without documentation. But even Dreamers, which is a legal program, as criminals. This is what the official White House account under Donald Trump posted yesterday. So it's an ASMR video, they're calling it, showing the chains.
This is Nazi stuff.
I think we get the picture. So there you have it. ASMR. It's really going to calm people at night to hear the soothing sounds of chains and shackles around people's ankles. It really is, I think, an important story for us all to keep in mind, that local news for much of my life has played a significant part in elevating fears around crime and showing violence, because when it bleeds, it leads. And, you know, they're not, local news affiliates are not going to cover local politics and things that, you know, affect people's day-to-day lives. You got to rely on local papers to do that. It's not local news anymore that's pushing this. It's our social media feeds, which are run by a bunch of billionaire tech oligarchs who are currently cozying up to the Trump administration and who are also heavily invested in things like surveillance technology with Palantir. They want to create a tech state that has mass surveillance that is privatized and controlled by them. And you know how you get people to give up their rights like we did in 9/11 and continue to do? You freak them out. And there has been a multi-year campaign to pretend like the cost of living increases that you're experiencing with your rent or your food is the result of immigrants, or it's the results of homeless people or black people leeching off the rest of us, and this is why we have to lock them up. And it was put to the top of your social media feeds by a bunch of people who could benefit from it. And that's the reality that we're seeing.
Yeah, they're doing this with to tie it back to the AI hype stuff. They're doing this with the AI thing too. I just saw a thing with Glenn Beck where he was making Elon Musk has done this too, where it's like the AI is going to become so powerful. That's why we need brain chips to be able to fight the AI. So it's like, yeah, it's all this mass surveillance push. I think you're right with the crime thing too. Also, that video is incredibly weird. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's
the way
Nazi
it's
stuff.
shot. Yeah, absolutely. But also just like weirdly shot, and the ASMR thing seems like an Elon Musk that, like, I don't know if it seems like out of time, like kind of outdated.
Right, a meme that's 2 years old, but that is very Elon. You know, I mean, Doge is how many years old at this point, and he thinks it's very funny.
The truth is that the people who are actually lying and misrepresenting the crime story in America are the people who are pointing towards blue state and like blue mayors, like the Young Turks, when the real truth is, and the people who give a fuck about crime and people getting ground up in this country, the truth is that Missouri, even excluding Kansas City, has higher violent crime rates than New York City. Why is it that people have no idea about that? America is, in the affluent world, murder capital of the world. murder capital or murder like sort of leader in the countries. Why is that? It's because of guns.
Yeah.
Because of a Republican fucking issue, right? And so all of this has been misdirection. Look, the rise in crime, it was very clear, like it was for the reasons we said and not the fucking George Floyd effect, like Anna's favorite charlatan likes to point out. It was clearly because of the material pressures put on people because of the pandemic. And as those have been alleviated slightly, the crimes have gone down. It wasn't some psychic thing because people got too woke or something. That only idiots would actually believe that. But we do have a problem with crimes, with police who don't solve fucking murders. Like our murder clearance rate is bullshit because cops don't actually do work in this country. They are uncontrollable by any administration, red or blue. They're lawless and they need to be brought to heel. But we never have that conversation because we have people simulating it by saying people like us don't take crime seriously. People who take public transportation don't care about how the subways are. We do care about it. We're the ones who own the solutions to this. It's not, applauding Trump sending people to Costa Rica, or it's not having a billionaire developer that's pro-cop, like support him in an election. It is these sorts of things. It is investing in people so they can have a roof over their head, because that's really ultimately what's going on, is that people in cities are seeing homelessness because rentiers control development. And look at any rent prices anywhere. I'm not just talking about New York City. Go to Missoula, Montana. It's because the parasitical owners of society, capitalists, are making it a problem for everybody. And anything that doesn't emphasize that is a problem. So yes, Missouri, folks, we need to get on this crime problem. We're the people who are concerned about crime, not the people lying about it, pointing at woke mayors or whatever the hell TYT is doing.
All right. Well, I know.
It's so annoying to hear that, NYC lets migrants punch cops, like Cenk Uygur said. They just let migrants punch cops because we don't care. Are you kidding me?
I don't even remember that one.
I also don't know if you guys saw this new app from this app development called Protector, which seems to be
oh God!
This guy.
Is it like Citizen?
This app developer, Nikita Beer, said 2 days ago. Over the last few months, I've been advising Protectors a new app for ordering an on-demand security detail, or more simply, Uber with guns. Today, they're debuting in Los Angeles and NYC at number 3 on the App Store. If you have a hot date this weekend, pick her up in a Protector. So I feel like this is a little bit of also of the.
What?
I think this is a bit of a confluence of
Ubers with guns?
Of some things here.
Oh, the Protector. You know what? Honestly, why don't you guys just save a few bucks and bring your dad along with a shotgun?
Leftists should become providers of armed security services and infiltrate that application and use it to find information on the type of people that might book security. We need any leftist armed agent. We need y'all now.
Yeah, although I guess maybe it's one of the top apps because Trump revoked the security clearance from like a dozen people who need it. They need Antony Blinken needs to download this app Protector now.
Yeah, it's Mark Milley.
Yeah,
you use this?
Mad Dog Mattis is loving the Protector app. All right. Okay, so, gosh, do we have... I know I saw that somebody has said they've been trying to get in for a while. I'm trying to look for folks' phone numbers. I'm sorry. All right, guys, this is the final call of the day. 404. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Dylan calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Dylan from Atlanta.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, sure. You're the final call of the day.
Ooh. So I wanted to bring attention to, I've been IMing about the weave.social. I'm a participant in Holochain. I've been watching it for 8 years. It is not a cryptocurrency project because there's not a currency involved. Excuse me, I'm really anxious.
It's okay.
Deep breath. Anyways, it hosts Moss, collaborative software prototype. They are still in 0.4 of their release cycle. Eric Harris Braun, as co-founder, has an interview there on the weave.social on his philosophy as co-founder that is enabling people to build and create their own rules of engagement outside of a tech or corporate overlord watching them or government surveillance. So it's collaborative software, your Google Docs, your spreadsheets, your email, Zoom, Trello, Slack, Twitter, chess, without having a server, without having those companies acting as servers, middleman between as validating your data. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. But so anyways, New York Textile Lab using resource event agent accounting software on there too, which is best explained by like thinking of, there's this common misconception about currency, about money being issued from the government and how it's redeemed and it being issued in debt. So these are founders who have read 5,000 years of debt. Sorry, I'm getting way ahead of myself.
To be honest, I'm having a little bit of a hard time following. If you could just summarize this really quickly.
So the project enables people to, organize their business or have their private friends, Facebook and Twitter on your local first machine to machine. But more than that, it's like resource event agent accounting is like looking at a spaceship Earth type philosophy that money is an artificial means, is an artificial resource used to as a means of exchange between natural resources. And we have multiple multi-dimensional metrics of value currencies, like the way academics, you have your attendance, reputation, your homework grades, quizzes, everything. Those are certain currencies that operate, that get redeemed for class credit. Your class credits operate as certain currencies.
I know.
That might be
so
right,
I think you're.
So Holochain is enabling mutual credit currencies to be enabled by the people so that people can actually start while all this fucking Elon Musk bullshit is going on and anti-Semitism. I have a lot more to get into, but
okay, caller. Unfortunately, caller, I got to say, I don't know. Like, this is kind of when people call in and talk to us about Mastodon. It's not really the most interesting thing to us. Just let me finish. And like, also, I kind of think like this is the Aspen Institute sort of backed project. Am I correct in seeing that? Like, I just don't think that this is backed by the Aspen Institute and sort of like a bunch of diplomatic funds.
I'm not. I know there was a crowd fund that that's why I said I was a participant of the crowd fund on Indiegogo way back when. But it's agent centric, and so it puts the data.
Okay,
so
we got
the data sovereignty when we're talking about the AI.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, buddy.
I know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think says Sam would have cut this call already. Well, I mean, all right. Well, you're stuck with me right now. No,
he's doing a little promo for something. It sounded like.
No, and I appreciate the call, and I think that there's a lot of. I'm hesitant to endorse an app or a service that can solve the problems that he talks about there, which are really, really centuries old. Like, if we're talking about currency and money, this is predating capitalism, and we can barely, I will hope to get rid of capitalism in my lifetime. Like, I mean, so we're.
I hear this with a lot of people that I follow, where they think something like that is going to solve all the social problems, and I'm very skeptical about that. Even people I think are really smart are like, Bitcoin this or Bitcoin that. I don't think it's going to solve these big social problems.
Yeah, there's a couple things. One, when you talk about like creating a network, like like I'm interested in networks that exist. It'd be nice if Mastodon became the dominant force in sort of social media, given that it's fundamentally, more decentralized or whatever. Ultimately, I'm interested in where people are hearing ideas and arguing and stuff. And also, like, when it comes to techno solutioning, it has to be, to me, tied to a labor component. So like when the Uber competitors come out backed by the actual drivers themselves, that's what I'm interested in. And look, like, Godspeed. If we've becomes, keep proselytizing to the people who are, looking to be more intentional with how they consume social media. If we've .social can take off and, it maybe beat Blue Sky, then, we can talk about it more. But in the sort of early stages like this, I'm not that interested in pie in the sky thinking of networks that are just hypothetical.
Gonna read some IMs and get out of here, folks. Carl Barks, ChatGPT is great to help figure out Excel formulas. Please don't let it write news, though. Jesus effing crisps. Yeah, I've heard that.
I've heard it gets bad math scores, though, on certain things. So I don't know how much you want to rely on it. What I would say about AI is don't trust and verify if you're going to use it for really anything.
Just Stunning says, didn't John from San Antonio say the last election was the third highest turnout in history? It was not. Like, I think his issue was downplaying that Trump. He didn't want us to portray that Trump didn't add to his support, because he did add to his support. Which I think if that was John's criticism, I would agree with it, and I don't want to downplay it. But it was lower turnout in areas that didn't affect the Electoral College for Kamala, that I think isn't just regional in terms of the implications for the Democratic Party. Meaning, basically, people making under $100,000 a year, more working class voters and working class voters of color, that if the Democrats don't actually reorient the party, that is the big concern, right? And if this could just inverting really here and making it so that it's just a party of high propensity upper middle class voters, it means that Democrats will always overperform in special elections in the midterms because they're likely to turn out. But when it comes to the presidential election, this is what we missed, and I missed again this time around, which is that no, 2022 didn't carry over when Trump was at the top of the ticket. And when it's just a higher turnout election, which is what presidential elections are. Aaron from Germany, on the topic of guns, are you familiar with the SRA, the Socialist Rifle Association? It's actually a left-wing organization advocating for gun rights. It's a little deflating to see it actually has 10,000 members.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I'd caution against buying guns out of sort of fantasies that you're going to stop fascism with it, because statistically the chances are you're more likely to accidentally misfire it in your house.
Yeah.
That said, the way that the world is headed, as somebody who comes from a background that was around guns, if I lived in North Dakota, I would have guns. And I think, I don't think those groups are very dangerous to encourage people to go to, because I think feds might target them. But on the other hand, like a self-defense group, like that's part of America. Guns are part of America. It would be nice to have more control. I think the state should outlaw certain classes of weapons entirely and say fuck the Second Amendment when it comes to those. But we're not going to get rid of any sort of all sort of gun ownership entirely. I don't think. Like people are that is somewhat in the Constitution, even if people might quibble with what was originally meant.
Yeah. Christo, I was very surprised to see a clip of Colin Cowherd being very critical of Trump. Still can't stand him generally, but at least he doesn't have boomer size in his politics. They're very much Nordic fascism. Yeah, that's so funny. That's exactly right. And it's odd because, what's his name? Gosh, again, from Cowherd. He was listed in that lawsuit as like being very unproblematic and like kind to his fellow employees, even though he's arguably the worst sports commentator around in the mainstream. I mean, he says a lot of things that just are straight up not accurate, but good for him, I guess. Yada yada said not to be a dick, but college guys got to jot down their bullet points in practice. I've spent probably 25 hours on hold and never got through with this show, and I can't imagine. Okay, all right, the point taken.
Give the guy a break. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. The girl says another plane crash, Arizona. Jesus Christ. Mr. Melancholy, does any of the MR crew have a Letterboxd account as RM Brown? I do have one, and then I forgot my password or don't have the app anymore, and I just tweet out my film opinions, but I should probably post more on it. I just don't fully know how it works.
I do, but it's the problem of like how much of your life do you want to be seen
Exactly.
by people? Like every time you watch a movie, do you want it to be content for everyone to consume? Like I kind of don't.
No, I don't either, but I do love giving my hot take so much. What?
Well, also, am I going to be like, if I start doing Letterboxd seriously, am I going to be like watching the movie and interrupting the movie, thinking about what I'm going to write on Letterboxd about it? Is it going to compromise the movie watching experience, you know?
Yeah, I like the way gambling, well, at least it's not financialized, but gambling, you know, kind of perverts the sports watching experience. So
it enhances it.
In half the time, or 40% of the time, it enhances it. The 60% of the time, it makes you really sad.
Makes it depressing. Absolutely.
Yada 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 says I bet Anna Kasparian watches the White House ASMR video to help her wind down at night. And the final I am of the day. Sam America's dad. Can Emma and RM Brown have a show if Sam was ever to somehow leave or Emma was to make a show? Things to consider. What if
I could be like your mad dog, maybe.
Right.
Could be the kind of more obnoxious one.
You're gonna have to work on the character.
Yeah, I will.
All right. Get back to us on that. Everybody, check out RM Brown show. Where can people find you?
RM Brown on YouTube. Check me out. Thanks for having me, guys. Whoa, thanks for having me, guys.
Sorry, phone lines.
Always fun. Yeah, you're
Always
cut
fun.
off.
Yes. People should check out RM show. It's very funny.
Yes. Everybody should check it out. Check out Left Reckoning, all that good stuff. Folks, we will see you tomorrow.